The man who started it all, Thierry Sabine, founder of the Dakar, it was his vision that brought us this amazing race.
Well,
the spirit of competition, he says, is a modern idea, which I like and I share. Spirit of expedition, as Citroën used to have it, is what it's all about. Puts life more into focus. For some years, the spirit of competition was bigger than the spirit of expedition, and I had to learn it, because if you're born an adventurer, that's all very well, but when you come from the middle of Paris, these things you have to learn. It's a school like everything else. And what a college he chose to learn in. Well, how different it looks to today's convoluted course. It couldn't have been more simple in 1979. Once in Africa, a straight line through Algeria before hanging a right and heading due west through Niger, Mali, into Senegal and Dakar. Sounds easy. Well, the start, the 26th of December 1978, 182 competitors lined up to begin with 80 cars, 90 bikes, including 7 female entrants, 12 trucks. Only 74 would cross the line when they finally got to Dakar. Looks like an awful long time ago, does it not? And it was. Brave and intrepid, they all set out on what was to be a very, very long story indeed. Well, do you remember, or do remember, Gare de Mopti? It was a fast stage, and suddenly you have these traps where the tracks are washed out by erosion. Today it's nearly the same thing, so the traps are going to be close to each other. Well, it was completely unknown terrain. Most of the drivers were almost unaware of the conditions that they were going to face. That in part explains the high attrition rate, but safety was always a concern, and Peugeot supplied a number of medical cars in the shape of 405s. But it became clear that the locals reserved a particular love for the motorcyclists that entered each event, the rider being greeted by waves and cheers in every village, and perhaps their vulnerability compared to the car drivers just made them more special to the locals. Well, the inaugural car winner, the 4th placed vehicle in the whole event, Genestia, Terblot and Lamardon on their Range Rover. The bike overall winner, 21-year-old Cyril Neveu. Amazing. Yes, he won the overall rally as well. So to 1980, a slightly more convoluted route, nearly twice as many stages, and a whole load more competitors meant that the 1980 event was a significant step at all levels from the inaugural year, riding high on the now established success of the first Dakar. This time, New Year's Day was chosen as the departure date. Second edition of the rally underway. Well, increased number of stops greatly improved the survival rate. 216 vehicles left Paris, 162 arrived in Dakar. Well, they were much more robust out there than in 1979. Volkswagen, prepared by Motor Rodi and Parisian Garage, did well. Still suffered some serious problems with suspension in the early days, especially when running on the small cars like the Renault 4 of Claude and Bernard Moreau. But as he explains, the fight is what counted out there. Vehicles still looking fragile by today's standards, but they drove them as if they were tough as old boots. Certainly the competitors were exactly that. Bernard Moreau. We're here to fight this race. It's not a choice. If we don't fight, we have 4 Volkswagen Iltis on in the lead, and if it was boring, well, it was going to end like that, so we have to battle. The Volkswagens were looking nice and tidy out there and looked more purposeful than the Renault 4. Speed limits into the villages since have been brought in. Well, the Moreau brothers continue to attack, sometimes trying a bit too hard to catch the Volkswagens. They had to settle for 3rd place behind the German cars in the end in this one. Well, it was tough today. I thought the car was going to explode. We had 1 meter jumps out there. It's incredible, he says, crazy for us. It was hell. I'm really surprised that just a few of the better cars with better suspension overtook us. We expected more to go by. Well, in the bike category, it was the single-cylinder Yamahas of Neveu, Morel and Pinot versus the flat twin BMWs of Fenoy. Well, the story of this second Dakar rally was about the fight between the Volkswagens and the Renault 4 of the Moreau brothers. It's one of the best sequences of the rally. Well, he says, watch out, we're coming through, we're up to a village, so just watch out, take it a little bit easy. Well, watch out for the temperature, he said. Second Dakar was a resounding success, with nearly 75% of competitors making it to the end. A win for Volkswagen of the Kotolinski and Luffelman in their hands, and second title for Christophe Neuve in the bikes. The Dakar was well and truly underway and was starting to have a bit of a history. A string then was starting to be formed. 1981 saw a change to the route as the rally took a dive southwards towards the Ivory Coast, but that was more special, or what was more special, Frenchman Thierry de Moncourge and a Rolls-Royce, a car that took 2,000 hours of preparation time to transform into a rally car. Sadly, it failed to finish. Once more, the rally kicked off 1st of January, and we were soon into the dunes. Yes, Tennersbruft, as they became known. Many riders struggled with their directions in the desert and preferred to go around in groups for safety reasons. Nobody could risk getting lost out there in the heat. No beacons, of course, no GPS either, just maps. But we're in the desert, completely lost at the end of the village, don't know where to go. So we're just going to stay with some of these guys, he says. Well, as riders lost time through navigation errors, some began to force the pace, which resulted in a few nasty accidents for some. This is Thierry Sabine. Speaking to everybody, he said, people, you've got to be careful out there. There's a petrol station waiting for you, and some fuel if you want it. If you don't want some, then follow the road book and avoid the petrol station, because I just want to advise you that the last time I went into the village of Sillette, we planned the stage. When we were planning it, took me 1.5 hours to find the right way out, so be warned. Well, those words in mind, the riders moved on, paying more attention to the road books, and despite the caution, the pace certainly picked up out there. Helicopter cams were starting to be used, and the drama of the Dakar was starting to appear on television. Well, the first time Citroën had a works effort entered to compete, and the Range Rovers and Ladas were also there. They wouldn't finish higher than 16th. On-board cameras were fitted to the Yamahas, the BMWs for the first time, giving unrivaled perspective. Senegal, the bikes attempted a river crossing for the first time. No problem for the BMWs, but a few Yamahas got into bother. The locals all gathering for the spectacle. How would they get on? Well, after the bad luck and the breakdowns for the Yamahas, Oriol it was that took victory. For the cars, Metsch and Giraud made it a clean sweep for the French in their Range Rover, ahead of the buggy of Cotel and the Lada of Bravoine. Dakar history being made. We'll have an awful lot more of it. Join us for more after this break. The route was a lot more straightforward in 1982, and the celebrities began to flock in to the Dakar. Bernard Russi, the 1972 downhill world skiing champion, was there. So was Mark Thatcher, son of the British Prime Minister. Well, it was the first year that helicopters were so widely used for filming and for safety, and they showed us for the first time live what could become out there on this magnificent landscape of North Africa. Well, the Morrow brothers had a resurgence in their Renault 20, a new prototype for the French company. That was created in an effort to counter the advances made in the competition by the likes of Mercedes and the 280 GE of Jackie Ickx. Ickx was a master, not only endurance racing, it seemed, out in the desert as well. The form of the Dakar was starting to take shape as well. Bivouacs and night meetings and briefings, all becoming part of the norm after a busy day in the desert. Well, some helicopters over your head, as you can hear, says Thierry Sabine. There's one helicopter for the race direction, which I'm in. It's blue. Another helicopter in white. That's the medical helicopter. It's not the one over there. That's for the television crew, he says. Well, since the inaugural event, the performance of the machines had progressed dramatically, as illustrated in this sequence, as the Moreau brothers attempt to catch the Range Rover of Metsch and Zaniroli. speeds were rising, so were the danger levels, you have to say. Now the Citroën forcing one of the Range Rovers into a mistake. It really was tight racing on occasion. Well, nobody expected the Moreau brothers to challenge like they did, as the Renault was far from a racing car, but they never slowed, even in the villages it seemed, and they would eventually triumph in Dakar, mainly thanks to driving just like this. Watch out for the cows, he said. Well, it was a wholly unexpected victory for the Moreau brothers, but well deserved, whilst Neveu took his third victory in 4 rallies on board his Honda. Well, just to let you into a brief secret, some of these shots recreated later after just this magnificent win by the Moreau brothers. Nobody wants a camera on the outside of the vehicle while they're actually competing, as I'm sure you've probably already guessed. Nonetheless, it does kind of highlight exactly what conditions they were racing in. They went back to the same spots just to sort of liven things up for the cinema audiences and the like back home. So the Moreau brothers taking that well-deserved victory at long last. A more popular